Okay, so this is a very quick crash course into these 6 categories of images that has been sent earlier. So let's start off for Cull Pattern. So it says to replicate something like this. Okay, so we go to Rhino, and then we are going to model 2 curves. Okay, so I'm just going to use the curve tool here. Click, 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 click. First one, and then I'm going to duplicate, hold on to alternate, and move this one up. Okay, so now I will just deform this shape just so that it looks a bit like what you see over there. Okay, so just make sure that when you select this, gumball is turned on so that you have this control, and then also that points are also on. So that's with F10 to display the points. Okay, or you can type points on over here. Okay, so now that we have this, we are going to very quickly create 2 curve inputs. So this is the first one, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, set one curve, first curve, set one curve, second curve. Okay, and then we're going to loft these 2 together. Yeah, so this would kind of look like this, at least this shape first. Okay, okay, then now what we're gonna do, divide, the good old technique, divide domain, and then the isotrim. So what this does is that it will divide all of this into segments based off on the UV count, which we can control. So 10 less than 20, shortcut to create sliders, something like so, and you can adjust the divisions. So to be able to create kind of like this checkerboard pattern here, okay, so it's a checkerboard. What we do is we will use this Cull Pattern command here. So I take this list, and then we will cull the pattern over here. Okay, so right now the pattern is false, false, true, true. When I mouse over it, I can right click, set multiple booleans, and change this to be false, and then true. Commit changes. Okay, so these are all even numbers. So if we change this now to an odd number, you will now see that this will become checkerboard. Okay, so same thing. The good thing about slider is I can edit this, and I can make sure that values that my number can always go to under slider type to odd numbers. So then now you can change all of this, and it always will have the checkerboard pattern. Okay, so this is still fine. Okay, so now after you have this, then the simple thing is just after you get this pattern, you can either do a simple extrude this base pattern, and then now we are generally in this X direction, so I can use the X direction over here and key in a value. Maybe let's try 10 to 500. We can adjust this. Yep, so something like this if you want to reverse the direction, simply go to expression, change this to -x. Yep, and now you can have this pattern. Okay, so I'm just going to group this, Control G, and I'll rename this the Cull Pattern example. Okay, so this is the Cull Pattern example. Save this. Okay, let's just go to desktop. Okay, same thing here. Save my Rhino file. Okay, then let me save it with a proper name. Okay, so next up, this was Cull Pattern. So the next one is curves. So kind of something like this or this. So this is essentially a spiral. How can we create a spiral? It's quite simple. Okay, so for this I will just disable this first so that this doesn't show up. So middle mouse and disable. Okay, so that you don't get confused. I'll just leave this one here first. Okay, I'm going to draw another curve with this rectangle tool. Okay, and then now what I'm gonna do is I will double click and then I create a curve. Command right click, set one curve, choose this curve. Okay, and I want to be able to replicate this several times and copy it up. So I'm going to use the move tool, move this geometry, and I'm going to move it in the Z direction upwards. And let me just see, maybe 100. This is not to scale, but this is just to give your put your in the direction, correct direction. Okay, so kind of this is 1000, so it should be good enough. So but instead of just copying it once like this, we want to copy it multiple times. So we will use the series tool. So what the series does is that it starts with a start number. So by default it's 0, and it depends on how many steps you want. Okay, and the difference in values. Okay, so the steps, I want it to be a 1000 step, and by default is 10 count. I can also control this to be say 10 to 20. So now this is all copying at 1000 steps, as in 1000 in between step, 1000 units in between steps, and this is how many counts you have. Okay, so let me something like that. And now what we're going to do is, in order to create that shape, we want to be able to rotate this object in the same way that we have this series. So I use the rotate 3D tool. So the geometry will be rotated. The angle will also need to increase incrementally. So I can see here that this angle is in radians. So you have to right click, change this to degrees. And then the center should be the center of my curve. So I'm going to use the area tool to get the centroid over to here, and the axis here is in the Z direction, so that's fine. Okay, let's test this first. So my angle, this will give you a lot of values, right? So I'm going to copy and paste this, and instead of the step to be 1000, let me just change this to become, say, 360 divided by it has to be increments of this, right? So I will just use a mathematical formula, 360 division so this number divided by this number. Let me just delete this and connect this over here. So we're going to always use this number to determine how many steps, how many counts there are, and then this will calculate the step, because the output of this is how you would do a 360 turn. Okay, so now I'm going to place this inside of here, and you will notice that this has already started to rotate. I can select this and hide them, so you can see now they have rotated accordingly. If I were to change this value, it will update itself, always to rotate up to 360 degrees, kind of something like this. And then to just create the form, you just loft all of these curves together, and yep, now you have it, your beautiful shape. Okay, so that's for these examples. Just close this. Okay, next one, Deconstruct Brep. So it looks kind of like this. Okay, so it's the same as the Esplanade or Jewel tutorial, right? You just need to have a free form, and then you do the divide domain. Okay, so how do you get the free form? Okay, same thing. I'm just going to not do this so that it does not distract you. So disable it. So this and this, I will enable it towards the end. Okay, so I'm going to group this first, and I will call this the, wait, what was that called earlier? Curves. Okay, so that was the curves example. Curves. Okay. So to create this form, you will need to have kind of like a line and then a curve that sweeps along. So what I'm gonna do is, okay, I just draw a profile line first, and then I will draw like a free form curve. Tap to lock it in this direction. Okay, so just to make this three-dimensional, I will move this M, and move this here, move it up, move this up, and then oops, here, 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 and here. Okay, kind of something like that. Okay, so here, now I will again have my curve input, set one curve, choose this one, set another curve, choose this one, and then I will do a sweep one rail. So this is my section, this one over here, and this one is my rail. Okay, so it looks kind of like that. Okay, so then what we just need to do is actually the same as what we have done here with the divide domain. Okay, just to be lazy and also to prove that it's very easy to interspace workflows, I will just copy this part and plug this in instead. Okay, so now what I have here, I can increase this. So this one I don't need it to always be odd numbers. So I change this over here, and okay, I don't need so much here, but I need more here. In fact, so this one I can edit this to increase to say 50. Okay, pull this up. Okay, kind of something like that. Okay, to create this effect. Okay, so to make it look even more like this, I'll just rotate this. Sometimes it's tricky to rotate three-dimensionally. Okay, something like that. Ooh. Okay, a bit too funky. Maybe just slightly like so. Yes. Okay, this is good enough. Okay, so now what we need to do for here, we just simply, maybe this is too fat. So I will divide this to become 5. Yeah, this is easier to deal with. And then now we just need to use the good old Deconstruct Brep command here, and I will use the list item to control each one of these points. I can add this. Okay, 1, 2, 3. So I just need to connect a line from 0 to 1. Okay, so this is 0 to 1, and then 1 to 2. So 1 to 2. Okay, so this guy and this guy, and then simply 0 to 2. Okay, so 0 to 2. So all these lines here will be creating this triangle. And yeah, that's essentially it. With this, I just need to make sure that they always have the same correct perpendicular direction to extrude to. So if this is my point 0, I want to have a midpoint for here. So I'll use a point on curve. So this creates my midpoint. And I want to create a vector from here to here, which is point 2. So it's vector 2 point. Oops. So from here to point 2. Okay, and then another vector from this point to point 1. So to point 1. And then we will use the cross product. So cross product is mathematical, but you can see it from this. This is the easiest way to understand it. So essentially you have one direction here, the other direction here, and the cross product will go up. So use the cross product in Grasshopper to get the direction. And since we only need the direction, we will use the amplitude to make sure that I can control manually the distance that we move our extrusion. So now what we want to extrude is all these lines, but in this direction, which is the perpendicular direction. So now I can key in my value, so say 10 to 100 over to here. Let me just adjust this. Yep. Okay, so you can see this is how it will be like. Maybe make it even thicker. 500. Okay. Yep. So this will look more like what we have. So I'm going to hide all the rest. Yes. So you can see this, and it's all controllable with this. Okay. Okay, so this concludes for here. Then let's continue. Okay, this one is quite simple, right? We just have tubes that are within these curves. Okay, these dynamic curves. So same thing, I'm going to group this and then just label this. What was that called again? Deconstruct Brep. Okay, so now we're going to do these curves as per this. So what I'm going to do is same thing. This enable one part, and then it won't work. And then I'll just draw a new design. Okay. Oops. F8. So here, here, here. Okay. So this is one line. Okay, and then to look like this other thing, just move this up. And then I will duplicate this like so. Okay, so this guy, I shift this point down. This guy, I shift all this down. All this down. All this down. Okay, kind of like this. So I'll use two curves again to input them. So the first one will be this guy, and the second one will be this guy. Okay. And now we're going to use the divide curve tool for this one, and also for the other one. Okay. And they should always have the same number of count. So let's say maybe from 10 to 30 over here. Okay, and this will change this. And what I'm going to do is I will just create a line between these 2 points. Okay, like so. And then to create this effect, I just simply need to hide them. So I have these curves, and I can change the radius. Okay, kind of like so, and I can adjust this. Okay, and you can still adjust your points to change your design. Okay, of course, if it's too deformed, then they won't necessarily look so straight up. Okay, so you just need to do some adjustments, and you can create your same effect. Okay. Okay, so that concludes for this portion here, and let me just group this up. So this is the divide curve. Okay, and then I will disable this just for now so that you're not distracted. Also this guy. Okay, save. Okay, so now let's these two. So Hexagrid, this is just like how you can create hexagons very quickly, or like so. Okay, so how to create hexagons very quickly is very simple. In Rhino, you can just use the hexagon cell. Okay, so you just need a surface. I can model a surface like so. Top view. I can even now F10 on. I can adjust this so that it looks kind of dynamic in 3D. So I'll create a surface. Right click, set one surface, choose this, and now I have my hexagons. Okay, so surface F10 with the control points. Then I can adjust my shape, and the hexagons will update itself accordingly. And I can just simply use these cells and also pipe them with a nice radius. So say for example 200. Okay, so that's nice. Okay, and then I can just hide the preview, and now you have your shape. Okay, so I'm just going to take this and group them. The hexagons. Okay, so the last one will be the Voronoi here. Okay, so kind of like this shape here. Also very simple to do. So okay, so I'm just going to disenable this. Okay, so now we will just need to create 2 points. Okay, so 1 point here, and then I'm going to duplicate by holding on to alternate. Okay, something like this, just these 2 points. So create a point container, right click, set 1 point for this, and then set 1 point for this. Because the Voronoi, we want to create a 2D cell, so we need the points, and we also need the boundary. So we need to have a populate 2D first to create a region, right? So but to get the region, we need a rectangle, and we are going to create a rectangle with 2 points. So from point A here to point B here. So this is the rectangle. Okay, and then this rectangle will become the region to create many random points, and then these points will go into here for the Voronoi to create this pattern, and we will use the rectangle here as the boundary to keep the Voronoi cells in check. And we need to determine how many points we want to have. By default it's 100, so I can change this to say between 50 to 200, like so. So then I can adjust this. Okay, and I can also create a seed, say from 0 to 5, and then I connect this here, and this will randomize set up your Voronoi points. Okay, so even like this, you can also randomize. Okay, so maybe you like something like this instead. With all these cells, we can also use the same pipe command, same radius of, maybe let me make it thicker, like 300. To set it up here, and set it up here. Yep, and there you have it. Your very own Voronoi points. Same thing here, like this. Yeah, very cute and interesting. And you can always randomize this. Okay, it takes a while because it's generating it. Yep. Okay. Yeah, sometimes it breaks, but that comes with the Voronoi system. Okay, something like this. Nice. So I'm just going to set this up, group it together, right click, rename, and this is the Voronoi example. Save it. I will also save this. So if you want any one of them to work, you will just need to disenable them. So I'm going to enable them again. So by middle mouse on those affected points. So same thing. Here, enable again. Enable again. And yep, enable again. So yes, see, all 6 examples very quickly done up. Okay, save, And that's all. So try all these techniques and come up with your very own version of them. That's all.